Welcome, warriors. Today we are talking about something most of us women can relate to, at least in the beginning. But what happened in the chapters that unfolded and continued to unfold in Tasha's life was nothing like she or any of us ever expected to happen. Grab a tissue and hear what Tasha went through and how she responded over the last several years of her life. And don't forget to stay to the end because she's got a fantastic treat for you. Let's rock.
Does your past haunt you? Maybe you're in a storm that feels like it will never end. Are you fighting a battle that's rendering you hopeless? Maybe you feel like you're fighting alone, but your battle was not meant to be a solo endeavor. You were meant to be a warrior among warriors. My name is Heather, and I grew up thinking my battles were nobody's business until I found myself in an abusive marriage and felt cut off from all avenues of help. In this podcast, you will hear warriors' words. They will tell you of their battles, both won and lost, their journeys, and their lessons learned along the way. But we don't stop there. These warriors will share how they have applied those lessons to go from warrior to survivor to thriver. Whether it's an abusive marriage, illness, mental health crisis, or any number of traumas this world dishes out, these warriors will use their words to help you find the beauty in your broken, move beyond your battles, and become the thriver God created you to be. Pick up your sword or boxing gloves and join the battle. Your words are powerful, my friends. Make them warrior words.
Welcome back to the Warrior Words podcast. Tasha is someone I've known of for a long time now, but I didn't really know much about her or her story. But now I am so glad to have had the opportunity to get to know her. So allow me to make an introduction. Tasha was born and raised in sunny Southern California, where she knew she would be a writer early on. She started writing stories in grade school, completed her first book in junior high, and was on the newspaper staff in college. Honored to be a multiple award-winning author, Tasha draws inspiration for writing through the experiences and the people she loves. Her greatest honors have been marrying her high school sweetheart, Jeff, and being a mommy to one of heaven's sweetest angels, Brody. When her head isn't in a book or writing, you will find her on the couch with her husband watching a movie with a hot cup of tea in her hand. Tasha enjoys using their free time to travel around the world and taking their dogs, Ari and Maxwell, on road trips throughout the U.S. Still based out of SoCal, she continues to share her time giving back by hosting an annual toy and jacket drives and back-to-school fundraisers for her local children's home. Tasha has written a story of grief, loss, and love. She has been both a keynote speaker and guest speaker and can be heard on nationally syndicated radio and podcasts such as Infertile AF, Infertility and Me, and The Chat. Tasha hopes her story will reach a broad range of readers and provide them with inspiration and strength to never give up. Before we hear Tasha's story, here's a review from Southern Belle 26. Beacon of Hope. Finding encouragement as someone who battles chronic illness for over a decade. There are times that feel dark and alone, and these stories are a reminder of hope. Thank you, Heather. Wow. As I mentioned in another episode, I don't select specific reviews to match my content, but here we have another one that really speaks to today's content. I can only ascribe that to the intervention of the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Southern Belle, for recognizing the hope these stories provide. I hope you hear this episode and find some hope that came from the darkness discussed in Tasha's story. And I hope that you are finding relief for your chronic illness. as much as you can. I appreciate you taking the time to leave your review for the show. Would you like me to read your review on an upcoming episode? Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show. Your comments and your star ratings help people find the Warrior Words podcast. It only takes a few minutes of your time, and it would help so much. And the Warrior Words Facebook community is now open. Come join us for inspirational stories, lessons learned, and beauty bombs. And if you want to know what a beauty bomb is, just go to facebook.com/groups/warrior words and request to join, and then answer the few questions that pop up after requesting. I look forward to getting to know you all there. Now, on to the show. Hi, everyone. As you heard in the intro, we are blessed to have Tasha Van Howe with us here today. Hi, Tasha. Welcome to the Warrior Words podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with you today.
Yeah, I am so grateful that you were able to make some time and to come on and share with us today. And for everybody else, Tasha and I have been in the same writing group for about 2 years or so now. And it wasn't until I saw an interview that she did that I fully realized the extent of her story. And Tasha's story starts out like a lot of our women's stories, being excited for pregnancy and looking forward to that journey. And from here, though, I'd rather have Tasha share her story and how that all got started and how it played out with you.
Okay. Oh, well, I hope my interview that you saw I was okay. Hopefully I didn't cry through it too much and you understood what I was saying.
I did. And
okay.
I think there were a few understandable tears, but
it does happen that way. Yes. You are right. As you said, my journey is what I think many women think about either growing up or, once you fall in love and you think about starting a family. My husband and I are actually high school sweethearts. So we've been together a long time. I won't say how long because I don't want to age myself right now, but we've been together a long time. So since high school. And, it's always been something we talked about. We had names for the children that we thought we would, have already while we were dating. So once we just started trying to have our family, we realized it was a lot harder than people ever talk about. I miscarried a lot along the way. I hate that word. I feel like that's just not a justifiable word for going through something like that.
You're right. Yeah.
And then we finally did have a pregnancy that stuck, and we were doing really well. And then things just started happening. We went to a doctor's appointment, and she said, "Oh, you have something called trisomy 18, or maybe it was trisomy 13." And I knew nothing about it. And I said, "Well, what is it?" And she said, "It's fatal. Your baby won't survive. Do you want to continue this pregnancy?"
Wow.
Just like that. And, whoa, I don't even understand the words that are coming out your mouth right now. So,
wow, yeah, it sounds harsh.
Yes.
And blunt.
Really, yes. I mean, especially when you're going and they're blissfully thinking, we're going to see our baby. And then for her to so bluntly and almost aggressively ask such a question. I said yes, and we went home, and I called back, and I said, I really need more information. And they said, "Oh, well, you don't have it. You're just positive for it because of your age." They said that is so not what she said. So they did blood work, and I didn't have it. And so it was very shocking because I thought she asked if I wanted to continue with it. What if I had said no at that moment?
Right.
So then my pregnancy was progressing very well, and same doctor many months later says, you're not producing amniotic fluid. Your baby won't survive. Again, just like that. So I started calling her Dr. Death because I don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And I fought tooth and nail for our son. His name was Brody. And I even fought to get myself into a different hospital that specializes in different cases. And unfortunately, Brody did not make it. I did deliver at 33 weeks. But the biggest thing was that, all these doctors kept saying he wouldn't survive because he doesn't have kidneys. My biggest thing was he had kidneys before on the other tests. So where did his kidneys go?
Yeah, that's a valid question.
um, so I again just kind of stuck to it, and they kept saying he wouldn't be alive when he was born, and he was. And he blessed us with 30 minutes of his life. And
Wow.
um, you know, what I the words can't express how grateful I am for those 30 minutes.
Mhm.
But it was a journey to get there. And after he was gone, I kept telling the doctors that I couldn't feel my legs. I don't know if you know this part of my story. Do you know this part of my story? Um, I I couldn't feel my legs, and it wasn't until a couple of days later that they said, "Oh, you have to go to the bathroom." My husband takes me to the bathroom, and I fell completely to the floor. I had no use of my legs.
Oh, wow.
And so when the doctors came in, they're like, "So you can't feel them at all?" And I said, "No, I've been telling you that for 3 days." Um, so I ended up having complications from the epidural during labor,
Hmm.
and I went home in a wheelchair. So we
Wow.
lost our son that day, and I lost the ability to walk. I was in a wheelchair for about a year.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and when we went back for follow up on my legs, I was brought into a very large room with many doctors and official looking people at a table. And they told us that Brody did, in fact, have kidneys. I knew that.
Surprise.
And they said it was actually his lungs were underdeveloped, and that's why he didn't survive. So I live with that every day. I always wonder every day, had they just rushed him off to the NICU, would he be here with us today?
Mm. Wow. It's, it's a hard question and thought to live with
Every day.
every
Mhm.
day. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I, I think I think I had heard you touch on the paralysis in that other interview, but I think the focus was more on Brody and his short but beautiful life.
Yes.
And I remember crying.
Oh,
You may not have had, the ugly tears you were talking about, but I remember crying because I just think that, so many people go into pregnancy and marriage and pregnancy, and they have these expectations, and you walked into that hospital with some expectations, and you came out without your son and
yeah.
without the use of your legs, which is what
Yeah.
nobody has expectations of.
Yes. Especially the use of the legs. I've talked to so many women, and I guess it happens more often than we know, but nobody talks about that either. It's this weird thing where I feel like women and labor, the whole experience, like people just really don't talk about all the things that happen.
Hmm.
I always say maybe it's because you blissfully forget because you bring your baby home and
Yeah.
you're like, gosh, this was the best thing I've ever done. And then I'm on the other side going, okay, so I can't walk and I don't have my son. So um, it was not blissful for me. I mean, I
Oh,
remember my husband driving away and was like grabbing onto the windows. We're driving away from the hospital, and I was just screaming almost for Brody because I couldn't understand it, couldn't fathom what was
right,
happening right now.
right. And I think that's a very understandable reaction.
Mhm.
This is not something you were prepared for. I
Not
mean,
at all.
who prepares for that?
I,
When you don't discuss it, when it's not something that's a commonplace, you can't prepare for that.
I feel like even
So,
when you discuss it, you still don't.
yeah.
I think because you discuss it, but you in your mind or in your heart, you're really thinking, well, this isn't going to happen. That can't be
Mhm.
real. Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it certainly as the years go by now, I almost feel like maybe it almost didn't happen because it's so surreal. Um, we came home, our life was completely upside down because we didn't have our son, and I was in a wheelchair. My husband Jeff now needed to accommodate everything around the house to accommodate me in a wheelchair. And
Mhm.
um, I was also caring for my mom at home who lived with us, and she was afflicted with Alzheimer's. So that was a very
Oh,
confusing time
goodness.
for her. She would
Yes.
see me in a wheelchair and try to understand it. Um, so that was a good first year. Around the second year of that, we decided to do IVF. That is another thing that I think people go into IVF going, I'm going to get twins firsthand. I want a boy
Mm.
and I want a girl. And we did everything. And I gave they retrieved 17 eggs. And slowly, as the days went on, um, I would get the call that the eggs were not making it. And we made it down to the final egg. And they said, okay, it made it. We have one egg. And that's Jeff and I just kept saying, we only need one egg.
Right.
And so they did a genetic testing on it, and it was not a viable egg. So we ended up with no eggs. The following year, we decided to do a private adoption, and we signed up with an adoption agency, and we were with them for about 2 years until birth mother chose us. She was unhoused, and we had to pay for her housing, for her hotel, her clothing, her food. I went to all the doctor's appointments with her. I felt like we were quite close. I remember saying to Jeff, it was going to be odd not being able to see her, after the baby was here, and we parted ways. But when we got to the hospital, she had given the baby to a different family.
How is that even legal?
But really shouldn't be. However, our agency didn't really jump in and help us. We were calling them and saying, "Find, come to this hospital, talk to the social workers. What's happening? How could she fraudulently, take from us and from another family? She can, she can maybe change her mind to keep the child, but to
Hmm.
give to another family means that you fraudulently took money from us."
Right.
And she did just that. Again, came home with a car seat in the back seat from the hospital with no baby. So
Jeez. Mm.
many times, and that was going to be the last time we tried. And then finally thought, well, there's one avenue we didn't do. And we decided to do a donor egg. And we did a donor egg. Um, and my best friend Shannon was going to carry for us, and she did. And she made it to 5 months. And when she went for a checkup, the baby um, had no heartbeat. So that was our last and official trying of having a family. Just became too hard.
Yeah, I don't blame you that with each story or each chapter of your story that you tell, it gets harder and harder. And I personally don't understand, I guess, the strength involved in that. And I commend you for your continued tries, your persistence, as we were talking about before we hit record. You are a very strong woman who is very persistent, and those are
I'm
excellent
persistent.
qualities. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about strong. I know I get that from readers. I know I get that from people who have heard our story, comments on social media. Um, I don't feel like I was strong. I think I blame myself a little bit for that. I feel like if I had been stronger, maybe I should say, Brody would have been here with us. But I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder how everyone else might hear your story.
Right.
And I have to look at the positive sides of that. I guess I am strong because had I not fought as hard as I had, we wouldn't have even had those 30 minutes with Brody at all.
That's true.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
So yes, hopefully strong becomes part of your vocabulary. And
working on that.
eventually one day at a time, right? One day at a
Yes,
time. So
I actually have a post, not a poster, but like a chalkboard, and on it it says one step at a time. Because for us, it was very fitting, physically and mentally, one step at a time. Yeah,
yes, as you regained the use of your legs. Yes.
yes. And
Very good.
after all these years, I have not gained full use of my legs. Actually, I'm still having issues currently with my legs, and um, man, I used to love to go dancing before,
Mm,
and
yeah.
can't dance anymore. I kind of just wiggle it. And that's about it. So things have definitely changed.
Well, I don't dance anymore either, but and I do like I like the wiggle it.
Wiggle it,
We
wiggle it.
we we can still move, right? We're not dead
Yes,
yet. We can move something.
yes, yes. My arms work great.
Excellent. Yes. Yay. So, a lot of a lot of the episodes that I've done here, we try to talk about the lessons that have come from these different chapters in your life. Is there any one or two lessons that maybe stand out to you over the course of these years of persistence?
Um, yes, I always say one of them would be definitely be advocating for yourself. Um,
Yes.
through the process, I guess, I mean, especially if you're not prone to seeing doctors on a normal basis, right? Like you're going to believe in whatever the doctors tell you.
Hmm.
And for me, I've always just followed my gut when it came to things like that. And um, I kind of argue and I fight with doctors because I feel like, hey, you're wrong. I've been on WebMD. Just kidding. um, but definitely advocate for yourself. I know I say this a lot, but if I hadn't, we wouldn't have seen Brody alive for
Hmm.
those 30 minutes. And even after he passed, my family was able to hold him, and our closest friends were there, and they were able to hold him. And we were able to sort of just take in the moment and meet this little person and then say our goodbyes. Um, Another thing that I really strongly say about advocating for yourself is while I was in the hospital, I had extremely high blood pressure.
Hmm.
And during labor, they had to pack me on ice because they gave me magnesium to lower the blood pressure. And they said, okay, well, you're going to start throwing up and you're going to be extremely hot. So we're going to pack you on ice. I had pillowcases full of ice and I was throwing up. By the time I was having my C-section, they had to put one of those dental suckers in my mouth because while I was having my C-section, I was still throwing up into the dental sucker. So
Oh,
not
wow.
a good time. It was pretty intense. And there was one night when um, my husband was sleeping. I was just laying there, and a nurse came in the middle of the night, and I looked at her very faintly, and I said, "Oh, are you my nurse?" And she said, "No, I'm just here helping on the floor today." I said, "Okay." She goes, "Gosh, your blood pressure's still high." I said, "I know. I don't know why. I've never had high blood pressure." And she says to me, "Well, I'm sure the doctor will change your pain medication." She says, "Ibuprofen, Motrin, that's what you're on, and it tends to spike your blood pressure up. So I'm sure that the doctor will change it tomorrow." Okay. And sure enough, the doctor comes in the next day and says, "We have to pack you on ice and give you magnesium again because your blood pressure just won't come down." And I fought tooth and nail. "Nope, you're not going to do that. I want you to take me off the Motrin. Why don't we try that first? Change my pain medication." He literally took my husband into the hall to have a conversation with him, like, "Your wife could die. She needs to have this." And he said, "It's her choice."
Good
So the
guy.
doctor came in and he goes, "Okay, we're going to do it your way. We're going to change your medication. And if that doesn't work, the deal is we got to give you magnesium." I said, "Fine." And they did so. And a few hours later, I don't know, a few hours later, it was like later, late that
Mhm.
night, he walked in and he goes, "Gosh, I'm sure glad you stuck to your guns because your blood pressure is completely normal."
Good for you.
My husband and I just started crying because it was just like, it was wonderful to hear this news, but also,
Mhm.
gosh, I was so frustrated
Yeah.
about it. So, biggest lesson, oh, advocate for yourself. Go with that gut feeling. If you feel like something's not right, answer those gut feelings. I mean, nobody can advocate for you better than you can, and nobody knows
Yes.
your body better than you do. So
Hmm.
that is a very big lesson that I learned along the way. Um, and my other lesson I would say, as corny as it is I, kind of let love in. I know we tend to maybe hole up. I know I always describe my experience. I got very depressed and I was under this dark cloud. everywhere I went, this dark cloud followed me. But there are people out there who love you. And, I would look at my husband who is working so hard to care for me or pick up where I left off having to take care of my mom. And I would think he doesn't deserve for me to be living under this dark cloud. I need to let him in. And also I need to let him know what I'm feeling. And the more I did that, the more I realized like people want to help and people love me. Um, it definitely changed. I found the strength, I guess, in a sense, to just keep going, to keep trying. And whereas before I didn't want to get out of bed, now I thought, well, I have to get out of bed because, you know, my husband made me breakfast or something. It could be the smallest of somethings, or, well, my best friend's coming over to watch a movie just because she wants to be with me. And so I'd also say that let love in, let people help you.
And along those lines, what many people may not know that when they listen, that a lot of podcast hosts ask questions in advance of the interview. And one of the things that you wrote to answer one of my questions was that your husband saved your life.
Oh, well, now you're gonna make me cry.
And I mean, we're not talking that, we're not talking like he gave you the Heimlich maneuver or something, but
me out the pool or something.
but I think that goes so well with your comments about letting love in. Can you share with me why you wrote that Jeff saved your life?
I guess it kind of goes into what I was saying. Gosh, my tears. About that dark cloud. I could have chosen to stay under that dark cloud, um, or I would choose love. And because I do love my husband so much, I guess for me, I thought I don't want him to suffer any more than he already has. He lost his son as well.
Right.
And on top of that, yes, I may have lost the independence and the ability to walk, but he's the one who's currently bathing me and going to the store and cleaning the things that I would clean, or, all the things, and without complaint. Without complaint. And I thought, well, why is it fair for me to be under this dark cloud and be so woe is me? What does he get to do, or how does he get to mourn or have his grief? And once I was able to sort of put myself in that position where I would wonder what he was going through and realize I never reached out to him about it, it helped me get back to where we were. And I finally started talking to him, and he would tell me how he was feeling, and we really started to open up. We would cry, we would fight about, because I spilled milk and I'm crying. And then he would come in and go, you're fine. Like we're gonna get through this. So it could be anything, but at least it was together, and at least we talked through it. And also just I from that I would say, gosh, well, my best friend is over here, and she's reaching out to me, and she's wanting to bring me a Starbucks, and she wants me just to watch a movie. And I'm like, no, I'm holding myself up. Well, again, she's your best friend and she doesn't know how to help you, but she's trying. So that's the whole let love in. And so for me, it was just really sort of putting myself in his place. He worked so hard to give us sort of that normalcy, or what the new normal looked like, that I say he saved my life, because had he not been that person, I'd probably still be under that dark cloud, or who knows where I would have been.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I know. See, now I want to try. Yeah, those leaky eyes, right?
Allergies.
There you go. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. And yeah, they do. When somebody encounters a difficult time and they know their friend, their partner, their family member is suffering, sometimes they don't know exactly what we need. and we're not in a position necessarily to tell them.
No,
And so they
because
just,
we don't know what we need, right?
yeah. Sometimes we don't even know. Exactly. So, okay.
And I say
Well,
that's not just my, I'm like, I have my husband, but that could be anybody for anyone, right? You could have
mhm,
that sister who's your best friend. You could have your
yes.
mom who's taking care of the household and your children while you're in this depression. It could be anyone, but there's going to be that person who essentially could be saving your life, and you don't even realize it right now because they're just there. But that's what matters, right? That's what's bringing you out of the fog and from under that cloud. So, re, reach out, make sure you accept the help.
Yeah. Well, one of the other questions that I like to ask about here is finding beauty in the broken. And I think you just told us that is, that is beauty, is when somebody takes that time, even though they don't know exactly what they need, what you need. Um, they know you need something, and they know you need human interaction or contact, or maybe just a cup of coffee or a movie or,
Yeah.
a meal or something. And that is beauty when you are in your broken feelings or your broken situations. That is pure beauty when somebody
Yeah.
reaches out like that. So,
Yes, it is. And we don't know that we need it, but when especially when it's happening, but it's there, and we should embrace it.
amen to that.
I want to also say one thing that's brought on by the beauty of everything that we've gone through is having written my book, which was extremely hard to do.
Mhm.
I have met men and women who have gone through what we've gone through, and I've heard their stories, or I've heard how, my story has helped them. Um, and I finally, not quite yet, but I'm getting there. I feel like, okay, so maybe I was meant to write the story all along. Maybe have a voice for people who didn't have a voice or felt really alone. So that's
Yes.
that's some beauty in there as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Tasha, I'm so glad that you brought up your book, because that was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So what what brought you enough out of that dark cloud to decide to write a book about your experiences?
Peer pressure. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, anytime somebody would hear our story, whether it was a stranger or somebody we knew, the first thing that out of their mouth they would say, "This sounds like a movie," or "This sounds like a Lifetime movie." I get that all the time. Um, and I would say, "Yeah, I know. It's quite unbelievable." I've always been a writer. Even as a child, I was always had my head in a book or writing. So I knew I could do it. It was a
Hmm.
matter of whether I wanted to or not.
Right.
Um, and then I have a couple close friends and my husband who would say, you know, you always said that you were trying to look for a book while this was happening that you could relate to. That was a big thing for me. And I was on Amazon or I was Googling like books that I could relate to. And a lot of books when it comes to infertility or infant loss or even depression. I mean, there were a lot of books that were very either faith-based or had almost like a how-to. Like this
Hmm.
is what happened with us. And then I started, eating pineapple. And let me tell you, I had our miracle baby. And it was like, it
Jeez.
was the last thing I want to read right now.
Right,
Right?
exactly.
I don't want to know how you got your miracle baby right now. And honestly, something probably people don't admit a lot of times when they're going through that is your anger with God, right? Like
Mm,
the faith that you have has been jolted. I mean,
yes.
you really question it. And so that was another thing. I thought, well, I really didn't want to read a faith-based book right now because I'm struggling.
Mhm.
And so I would make those comments. So my best friends or my husband would just sort of say, well, then write the book. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I follow Richard Paul Evans, which is, we've met through that writers
Mhm.
group.
Yes.
And this was after shortly after the pandemic. And he said, I'm looking for like a hundred people to mentor and, you know, email or submit your idea here or something. I forgot it. Um, and I did. And then it was like, this is great. You can, like, you have such a great story or something. And now let's get you started with Richard. And we started doing Zoom calls. And I thought, oh, so now I have to write the story.
Yeah, now you have to actually write it. Yes.
Oh, that's what that means. So, so that's how I got thrown into it. Sort of, um, just I applied and thought, cool, this would be fun. And then all of a sudden, I was on Zoom meetings with him, going, "Oh, you want to know what my story's about? Sure. I don't have anything written." That's when I started writing. It was hard to write, definitely an emotional journey because I had to
Yes.
relive everything.
Hmm.
Um, Wanted to give up many times, threw myself on the bed many times, crying, but kept pushing through because I kept telling myself, maybe my book is the book that's going to help somebody else. And that's what kept me going.
Yeah. And I think, from what you shared earlier about your book, that it has done that.
Yes.
It has helped someone. And it probably helps more people than you realize, because not everybody reaches out and
That's right.
says, your book helped me, or, we wish they would.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, just having that out there, and being able to write the book that you needed, that's an incredible gift. I think definitely to others, but would you say it was a gift to yourself after you finished it?
Not at the time, and I'm still working on it. There, um, people ask me if I've actually read it cover to cover. I
Mhm.
haven't, only because I think it's
Okay.
going to be hard for me because I wrote it and I know what's
Hmm.
in there and I know
Right.
what's coming, and because I lived it. So I, but when I get the feedback from others or I hear their stories, yes, I go to bed that day going, oh, so worth it. And it was so worth
Yes.
putting those words on paper, as difficult as it was.
Yeah. So you haven't mentioned the title. And
Oh,
so I would love for you to tell us the title of your book and why you chose it.
the title is called Miss Me Always. Um, for obvious reasons, you can hear the Miss Me Always. I will miss the children we were meant to have always. My mom is written into the book. A lot of her story actually came out in the book, that I didn't think would happen, but she was a big part of that. And so my experience with her Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
was in there. So obviously I will miss her always. But it was very, appropriate, I guess, for us as well. My husband and I, before we said I love you, we were 16 and 17 in high school, all nervous, didn't want to say it. The way we sort of, shared our feelings is that we started to say goodbye. And, you have that awkward moment, like, do I want to say I love you? Like, no, he hasn't said it yet. So, um, I would say maybe, or he would say, one of us would say, miss me. The other person would say always.
Oh,
And it stuck with us. And even into our marriage, if we're leaving, we can holler, like he could be in the background, miss me, and somebody will still say always. So it's very appropriate for our book.
yes. Oh, it is perfect. Absolutely perfect. So where can people find Miss Me Always, anywhere? Is any
Yes. Yes, actually, anywhere that books are sold online, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble. But if they would like a signed copy or a personalized message, they can just go to my website, which is tashavanhowe.com, and I would be happy to give someone out to you that way.
Okay, and I will make sure that the link to the book on Amazon is in the show notes, as well as your website, so they could choose which one they would prefer. And then you have a wonderful, um, fun gift.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yes.
So anyone that follows me on Instagram at author Van Howe, and sends me a personal message about why they would like a copy of my book, maybe they have also experienced something, or maybe they have a family member that has experienced something similar and they want to relate to it, I'm going to choose somebody from those messages and I will send out a book to them. And they will also pick a friend or relative or somebody else who thinks that they would enjoy a copy as well. And I will send one to them as a surprise.
That is a wonderful, generous, generous gift. So everybody listening, go to author Van Howe on Instagram
Yes.
and follow Tasha there and get those messages. And so the last question I would like to ask you, Tasha, is do you have any warrior words that you would like to leave for our audience?
One of the things I say to people in person all the time is never lose hope and trust in your journey, because as hard as what you're going through right now is, um, advocate for yourself and trust in your journey, because the strength that you have in yourself is what is going to pull you through, and not to give up. So doesn't matter what you're going through right now, you're stronger than you know, and
Yes.
give yourself credit for that and push through.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent words. So I want to thank you so much for all of your time today and you sharing such an intimate and personal journey with us. And you blessed us. And I hope that whoever needs to hear your story will hear it today or any day. I don't know, today. We'll hear it as this airs. So I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Thank you for making me cry.
I'm not sure about that one. Good tears, maybe
Yeah,
a couple of
sure,
good tears. All right. Well, thank you. Strong and persistent. Those are the two words that came up for me as I learned more about Tasha and the path she has walked. She agreed with the word persistence. In fact, that was part of the lesson that she learned throughout her journey. That lesson that became her warrior words, which was to advocate for yourself and not to give up. And I wholeheartedly echo her words. It was the word strong she wasn't as sure about. Sure, I think we can all look in from the outside and agree that after everything she has experienced and her determination to write her story in order to help others, yeah, that's a strong woman. But maybe that's part of being a strong woman. To consider ourselves strong, maybe that implies that we've relied only on ourselves, that we had no help. Perhaps considering oneself to be strong implies a bit of arrogance when we know that our strength is not just because of us. Tasha mentioned that others were a huge part of her strength. Her husband, Jeff, in particular, her friends, other family members. She admitted that if she had been left alone, she might still be in that dark cloud today, or maybe worse. So, while I still believe Tasha is a very strong woman, I believe that the help of others lifted her up and added to her strength. Kind of like that story in the Old Testament where the Israelites were in a battle and whenever Moses had his arms raised, the Israelites were winning. But if he got tired and let his arms drop, the Israelites started losing. He couldn't do it alone. So his brother Aaron and her came alongside and each lifted up an arm. Their support enabled Moses to do what he needed to do. It was that combination that made him strong. So I ask you a two-part question this week. Where do you need strength? where someone can come and assist you? And or how can you support someone else in their strength? Because we are all stronger together. Something to think about this week. But before I go, I remind you to please celebrate Brody's wonderful life and Tasha and Jeff's love for each other and for their son, Brody. Follow Tasha on Instagram and then take her up on her generous opportunity to get a copy of Miss You Always for yourself and for someone else who may need to hear the hope written in its pages. Until we meet again, armor up, fight the good fight, seek beauty, and make your words warrior words. God bless.